In this film we'll be having a look at the effect of temperature on the permeability of membranes in the vegetable beetroot. Here cylinders of beetroot tissue are being removed from the uncooked beetroot using a device called a cork borer. You can see the purple pigment, which is called betalain, on the white tile. And you see the flesh of the beetroot is deep purple in colour. These cylinders are now cut into discs, all of equal thickness, in this case 1 centimetre. The discs are now placed into a beaker of plain water where they will be rinsed overnight in order to remove any of the purple pigment that's leaked out due to the cutting procedure. The experiment depends on measuring the amount of pigment leaked out due to temperature effects, so any that's due to anything else needs to be removed before the experiment starts. They're rinsed under running water for at least 12 hours. Each disc is then placed into a test tube, which will subsequently itself be placed into a water bath at one of the temperatures 0 to 10, 20 through to 70 centigrade. You might see a possible source of error in the way that the discs were placed into the test tubes. Now, added to each test tube 10 centimetre cubed of plain distilled water. Equal volumes need to be added to each test tube in order to keep the experiment as a fair test. Notice I made a point of saying volumes of water and not amounts. Here's the test tube in a beaker of water at 20 centigrade. Others were in water baths and in beakers with ice. Once the test tubes have been in the water at different temperatures for a fixed amount of time in each case, the subsequent water is poured into a cuvette and then its absorbance read on a colorimeter. At 0 and 10 the absorbance was 0, at 20 0.03 units, at 30 0.06 units, at 40 0.06 units, at 50 0.12 units, at 60 0.26 units, and you can see if you look at the cuvette it's clearly purple, whereas up until now they've been barely discernibly anything other than clear. At 70 0.47 units. If we plot a graph of the data, you can see that there's very little effect of temperature until we get to about 40 or 50 degrees centigrade, and then there's a fairly sudden rise in the amount of pigment leaking out. Notice that this does not imply a conclusion that as the temperature rises the amount of pigment leaks out, or at least there's more to it than that. The crucial thing to see in this experiment is the relatively sudden leakage of pigment at around about 50 to 60 degrees centigrade. This tells us something about membrane structure.